Could the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico have been prevented? The more we learn, the more it seems that way, but there may be no way to know for sure until the government conducts a criminal investigation. Scott West was the EPA special agent in charge of a probe into BP over ruptures in the Alaska pipeline. Scott now works in the Department of Intelligence and Investigations at the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. He joins us from Seattle. Scott, good morning. Glad you could be with us. Let me start by asking you this question. Had the government cracked down on BP earlier, you believe this accident and others could have been prevented, correct?
Well, that's absolutely correct. It's in my opinion that had we been able to continue our investigations into not only the transit line rupture on the north slope of Alaska, but also the refinery explosion at Texas City, we would have been able to perhaps develop information where we could charge company officials with criminal violations and held them accountable. And if that had occurred, then perhaps the BP officials that made decisions leading to the destruction of the Deepwater Horizon may have had second thoughts about making those rush decisions. But we'll never know because the Justice Department shut down those two investigations prematurely. Now we have another situation that is not being investigated, and that's outrageous.
Scott, I do want to mention to everybody that we are showing some live footage of BP's top kill operation underway. They're trying to inject drilling mud into the oil well in an effort to plug that leak. Scott, you just mentioned the fact that the DOJ declined to pursue a criminal case against BP over the Alaska pipeline situation or the Texas City refinery explosion, and you quit the EPA in disgust. I have to take it that you believe that the relationship between big oil and the government is too cozy. If that is the case, what other risks might be lurking out there that we just don't know of?
Well, let me back up here a second. DOJ did not decline to prosecute. They did indeed prosecute the corporation for those two accounts. What they did not do is allow me to pursue the leads and the investigation that hopefully would have led us to individuals within the company who had made those criminal decisions. Okay. That's important. I did retire early. I retired just about as soon as I was eligible because I felt that there was no support from within my agency for taking on truly viable and important criminal cases. DOJ said shut it down, and my management fell into lockstep with that decision, which to me was not what we were being paid to do. So I could no longer work in that environment and had to leave. Now, there are, of course, ramifications. I've said before, I think the actions of the Department of Justice and the EPA in those last two cases have taught BP that it can get away with this sort of behavior and won't be held accountable. At least its individual decision makers will not be held accountable for this sort of behavior, which most likely led to what we're dealing with now. And if something isn't done now, then there will be a next time and another time after that. It needs to stop.
Scott, I have to ask you this question because I know it's running through many viewers' minds. Why leave the government and join an organization like Sea Shepherd, which, as you know, has been accused in the past of environmental terrorism? Can you really hope from where you are now to get more done than you would be able to had you decided to stay with the EPA?
Absolutely, and I've got some examples. The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society is an enforcement entity. It goes out and enforces international law and treaty that government should be doing, but they're failing to do. So Sea Shepherd, with its bunch of volunteers and tremendous support, goes out on the high seas and enforces international regulations. Now, down in the Galapagos Marine Reserve, we have a presence there, we being Sea Shepherd. Through the work that I did down there and certainly the ongoing efforts of the staff there, we were able to bring Ecuadorian environmental law to bear to protect the ecosystem in the Marine Reserve. That's just one example of the success we've had.
Scott, I've got about 30 seconds left. I just do want to ask you, what are you guys doing right now about the BP spill in the Gulf? How are you making a difference with about 30 seconds?
Well, we've been trying to get a ship and crew to go down there and do some work on rehabilitating wildlife. BP, which controls the crime scene, has not allowed us in. So the best we can do is support what I'm trying to do, which is get the word out, and perhaps there'll be a change.
All right, Scott, we thank you for joining us. That is Scott West of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society.